everybody, welcome. I'm Daniel G. Garza, and this is another episode of Put It Together Conversations. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to welcome everybody who's watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, you can watch this live or watch it later on replays. Put Together is a show about folks, where they come from, where they are now, and what their journey has been like. And the idea is to motivate and inspire other folks to go after their dreams and goals. So we hope that you enjoy today's show. For the friends watching us on YouTube, will you do us a favor? Scroll down, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. It'll let you know every time there's a new show or post on our page. And please follow us. We need more followers on our page. What else? Also remember that we have shows pretty much every day of the week. Wednesdays is Kristen and Daniel. Fridays, the Card Devo. On Saturdays, a couple of Put It Together conversation shows, so make sure that you're following those along. On today's show, I have a very special guest. Colonel Justin F Blum has been in uniform for 44 years. Retiring back in June of 2019, he received his initial ostomy in February of 1993 after 21 years of ulcerative colitis. He was able to get through his pre to post ostomy times through a sense of humor, his loving wife's support, and compassion. Justin is currently a member of the board of directors at large for the United Ostomy Association of America. In his position, he likes to reach out and assist as many people as he can. He is married, has 3 grown children and 2 grandchildren. Hello to Ethan and Emily. And without further, let me bring him on. Colonel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine now that we got the Grinches done and you could see me instead of a black figure.
For those of you watching, we always like to share our behind-the-scenes tribulations. Colonel was sitting in front of a window that was very bright, so all we could see was the black outline, like a witness protection show. So
exactly.
Thank you for adjusting your camera and letting us see you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
No, go ahead. Say it again.
I said thank you for adjusting your camera and letting us see
sorry.
you.
We're good now. No, you're quite welcome, Daniel. It's my pleasure to be here.
Now, for those of you that like to hear the stories of how I know my guests, I think we connected through one of. Oh no. Ostomy, yes. But yes. Before that, we connected through. We have some mutual friends, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yes, in the ostomy community nationwide.
Yeah, and so he's been kind enough to be posting. For those of you that don't know, I don't announce it a lot. I have a page called Osto. We changed it to Osto Live, which is a page for people with ostomies, and it's a diverse page. So if you or somebody you know lives with an ostomy, please reach out and we will add you to the page. We try to post information, news, videos, whatever we can. And the Colonel is very kind to add his own stuff on there, so I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. You have a very interesting life, so I'm not going to keep talking. I just want to hear about you. So Colonel Justin Blum, tell us how you put it together.
Okay. This is how I put it together. This is how I keep my feces together. And it's all a matter of perception. I have a 6-year-old grandson, and he saw my ostomy bag. And for those who don't know what an ostomy is, and neither did my 6-year-old grandson, I said, Ethan, your granddaddy has an alternate method of fecal evacuation. And they looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? And I said that on purpose because the real answer, which I told him, is granddaddy goes poopy in a bag. And I've been going poopy in a bag for almost 29 years. And my ostomy surgery back on 28 February 1993 saved my life. But let's go before that. I look at my whole story as encompassing 50 years, starting in 1971. Starting in 1971, I found out that I had something called proctitis, which is an inflammation of the lower 5 centimeters of the rectum. But let's go back further than that. I was born in 1952, and when I was 4 years old in 1956, I found ecstasy for a 4-year-old. And that ecstasy was a big plate of noodles, elbow noodles, covered with cheese whiz. Now, for those who don't know what cheese whiz is, it's crap, but it sure enough does taste good. It's like Velveeta cheese, but it's in a can, it's in a jar, and my family now calls it whiz. I don't really use it anymore because of what it did to me. But from an early age on, I made a huge mistake, and that mistake caught up with me. I would eat a high fat, low protein, low sodium, which was good, but low fiber, no fruit, no vegetables, no salad, no nothing. And I would eat primarily noodles with cheese whiz on it, and steak and potatoes, or chicken and mashed potatoes, or pork chops and mashed potatoes, or I don't know, lamb chop and mashed potatoes. But there was nothing else that I would eat. My mistake, huge mistake. So the moral of the lesson is, if you're watching me and if you're under 18 years old and not eating right, eat properly, a well-balanced diet. Otherwise, you will run into having an ostomy bag, showing it right there, like I have. And we want to avoid that. Another problem I had was I kept everything inside. And I let the stress get to me. I never verbalized if anyone was saying something to me, against them. My mother would talk to me, or many times all through high school, I would feel like I'm getting yelled at every day, like a lot of young people would feel like they're going through high school. And I never talked back. And if I ever did talk back, I would feel like life as I know it would be over. So here I am, a little short, tiny guy who had a speech impediment. I had a lazy L. Not anymore, but I couldn't even say my name. Blum. I would pronounce it as Blum, and instead of Blum. And all these things I have going against me. I had an overbite that you can hang a hat on, and had all this stuff going through puberty. It wasn't good. I was the prime candidate for getting colitis. Ulcerative colitis is an inflammation of the left side of the colon. And when I first saw symptoms, I was bleeding through my rectum. And my parents, in the fall of 1971, when I was attending Morris Harvey College, that was in Charleston, West Virginia, I went home and I saw a gastroenterologist. The first thing he said as he looked up my rectum was, "Are you having sex with men?" And then I paused and I said, "I'm not even having sex with women. I'm having no sex. I'm a virgin. Here it is." And so I went through college like this. In college, I joined Army ROTC, and I liked it because I wanted to serve my country. But when I went another time to the doctor, I went back to my dorm on the campus of Rider University. And I said to my friends, the doctor told me I have colitis. Well, not hearing what I said correctly, they broadcasted in the entire party, "Justin has coitus, Justin has coitus." And they kept going on and on and on. And to be honest with you, I never really had coitus till I left for the Army. So I was a very innocent young man, gullible, naive, all these things. So I had to have a physical before I went in on active duty. And I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and it was an old doctor, and he was from the VA, and he looked at me and said, "You know what you got up there?" I said, "Yes, I do." He says, "I don't care if you go in the military or not. I'll write anything you want." Well, I was programmed to be an armored cavalry officer. not cavalry like horses, not like Custer, but cavalry as in mechanized. And I wanted to stay in that branch. So I said, if you can write that there's nothing wrong with me, so be it. And he did. So as far as Uncle Sam knew, I had no problems whatsoever. On active duty for a long time, I would hide the fact that I had colitis, not coitus, but colitis. And when I would have flare-ups of my colitis, I would tell my chain of command if they said, Lieutenant Blum or Captain Blum, what's wrong? And I would say, I had too much to drink at the officers' club last night. Too much good scotch. Well, I could only afford cheap scotch back then. But that was my cover, that I would party too much. And it got to the point that it was December 1992. My gastroenterologist said, you're going to get cancer. And you've had colitis now for 21 years, and you are destined to have cancer. And then you'll need an ostomy bag. And I was vaguely familiar with an ostomy bag was. And it's not that I said, what the hell is an ostomy bag? Well, he went into detail. And I said, no, I'm not going to have this done. I don't care if my back's to the wall. I don't care if I have 1 foot in the grave. I refuse. I will not go one day with an ostomy. Not at all. Little did I know I had to, because if I didn't, I would have been dead in 3 weeks. Wow. Which would have left my wife at the time 34 years old as a widow with a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And therefore, I had to have the surgery. Let me go back a few years. My first duty station, I was stationed in Korea, right on the demilitarized zone facing North Korea. And it was January of 1977. Minus 50 with the wind chill factor, freezing cold. I'm in my tank with the winter uniform, the big gloves, the big pants, the big jacket, the big boots, and I had an attack of my colitis. Well, there's no bathroom in a tank. Believe me, I looked. And I didn't feel like going in my pants because as an officer and a gentleman, we don't shit in our pants, not at all. I looked and there was nowhere to go, but I saw some caves straight ahead. And I told my sergeant, take charge of the platoon. I've got to go check out those caves, as I told him. So I went in the cave and I took off the big hat, the big coat, the big pants, the big boots, and I stripped down to nothing. And in the cave, it was warmer. I squatted down and I made the biggest, bloodiest looking doo-doo one could ever see. And it was from the colitis. Little did I know where I defecated was an observation cave for the South Korean Army for monitoring the movement of North Korean troops, tanks, artillery, etc. And about 2 days later, I heard about it, and they were trying to find out who went and took a big shit in the South Koreans' observation cave. Well, not to start an international incident, I kept my mouth shut and my asshole shut as much as I could, and I didn't want anything to be known about with this thing. My second tour duty, I was in Fort Monroe, Virginia. I was a single first lieutenant who was making a few more bucks, and I even had hair back then. And I had a somewhat good social life. And I lived in a townhouse, and I was in the bathroom doing my colitis thing, and I kept hearing pounding on the wall. Bam, bam, bam. Shut up in there. What? Next day, bam, bam, bam. Quiet in there. And next day, bam, bam, bam. You're scaring my daughter. You're scaring my little girl. Then there was a knock on my door, and there was some guy from Egypt. And after talking to him, we felt like Begin and Sadat, working things out. I wasn't Sadat. And this guy said, what are you scaring my daughter for? What are you making all those noises for? I thought for a second, and I burst out laughing. Said, and he said, I'm going to go to the office management and get you kicked out of here. And I said, if you do, I'll be the first one to get kicked out of an apartment for farting. And I explained I have colitis. And it turned out that he was a gastroenterologist who knew all about it. I didn't know who he was prior, and he didn't know I had colitis. So after that, we were best friends, and everything worked out fine then. Okay, going up ahead a number of years, I had to have the surgery done. My last colonoscopy was December 1992. They found a colon cancer. And as my wife found out from my surgeon, he said, he's a lucky man. If he waited 3 more weeks to have this surgery, he would have been dead, because the liner of my large intestine would have ruptured and it would go right into my stomach area.
Wow.
And I was very lucky, very, very lucky. Well,
before you continue with your next story, I would just want to remind everybody you're watching Putting Together Conversations. My guest today is Colonel Justin Blum, and we're talking about ostomies, pooping internationally, and discovering what's going on with our bodies. There's a lot to unpack in all of everything you shared in the first 10 minutes. There's one thing I want to go back to, because you mentioned keeping things to yourself and not sharing too much, which I wrote down as basically stress and just,
yes.
How does, because some people don't understand that our feelings, emotions, and such can also play a big part in our body and how it works. How did all that come to affect you?
Well, as a lot of viewers, if they've been to school, high school or college, I found in college, when I had the full-blown colitis, for 4 years during midterm and final exam sessions, my colitis would really act up because there's stress. You know, a lot of guys would take pills and stay up for a week and then crash. Well, I didn't do that. I didn't do that at all. It got to me. The stress of school got to me, because if I flunked out, then the draft board would have been notified, because I no longer would have had a 2R draft deferment, because of ROTC. And I wanted to go in as an officer. And they're still sending people to Vietnam. And I would have gone if I had to, but I prefer going in as an officer. Stress, things that bother you, can affect your body. And it's well known that can happen, and it does happen. There's a term for it. I picked up a master's in clinical counseling back in 1999. The Army paid for it. And I did that so I could help other ostomates, especially those that are in the hospital. But I'm trying to think of that name, but I can't think of what that is. But stress can affect, if you eat the wrong things. For example, if I had hot, spicy food, it would bother me. I ate a bland, no taste, no smell, no nothing diet for years and years and years. And basically, again, with the meat and potatoes, macaroni and cheese, and meat. I still didn't eat well until a number of years later, but nothing hot, nothing spicy, because it would affect my bowel movements, and it wouldn't be good. Also, what I found out, I can't have martinis. If you have colitis, don't even try to imitate Hawkeye Pierce from MASH and DJ by drinking martinis. It'll be like rot gut, and it'll affect your stomach. And my whole history, I'll be 70 years old my next birthday. I've had 2 martinis my entire life, and that was too many. So stress is a bad thing. If you're in a bad marriage or bad relationship, that could cause a lot of stress. And if you're prone for any diseases of the internal intestinal tract, digestive system, it's going to affect you. It really will.
Got it. And let me ask you before we continue,
Sure.
just to clarify on the alcohol part. Is
Okay.
it, what is it about? Is it a martini or is it the alcohol that,
It was the alcohol.
the alcohol?
The
So,
alcohol
okay.
was that. Now, not having a large intestine, I got rid of that in 1993. The cancer spread to my rectum, and therefore in January of 1999, I had my entire rectum removed, and the bottom part of my small intestine removed. So today, a normal person would have 32 feet of intestine. I'm operating on 9 feet of intestine,
Oh, wow.
9 feet of small intestine, and that's it. I'm on the fast track. If I eat it in the morning, chances are I'll see it in the afternoon, and can't resell it. Nothing like that. No.
We do have a question for you on the board, so let me pop that up so you can
Well,
read
go
it.
ahead.
Do you recommend that men get a colonoscopy at age 40 or younger? And can the colonoscopy make a difference with conditions that can lead to an ostomy?
A number of years ago, it was said 55 years older and older if you haven't had a colostomy, a colonoscopy. Now, because so many men and women have had problems, it's anticipated that 45 should be this age. However, if you have any colon cancer, rectal cancer, diverticulitis, any inflammation of your digestive tract in your family, have that colonoscopy at 40, 35, 30, earlier, because early detection of colon cancer can solve it. My father had colon cancer and he died at the age of 62. I'll be 70 on my next birthday, so I felt I was given another life. Here's why my father waited so long. My father couldn't stand the idea of a male nurse touching him anywhere. So he put off having a colonoscopy, and he waited too long.
Wow.
To me, that's a ridiculous reason. Nurse is a nurse. It doesn't matter what their gender is. It's a ridiculous reason not to have the colonoscopy. And who knows, he might have lived a good number of years later. But I learned from him, and from the age of 24, I had colonoscopies every 2 years just to be safe. And living now with 9 feet of small intestine, I plan to live for a very, very long time. I can drink alcohol now. I like scotch, good scotch. And my son bought me for my retirement a bottle of 26-year-old scotch, which I've had 2 drinks from it so far. I'm spreading it out. So it doesn't really bother me. Beer doesn't bother me. I have maybe 1 beer a month. That doesn't bother me. It goes right through me. Again, I'm in the fast track system. So if I'm careful, I live a stress-free, pain-free life. My wife has been extremely instrumental in all of this. She says to me, "You don't seem any different to me. The only difference is your asshole is now in your front instead of your back." And it's true. My stoma is right here on my side. They sewn up my rectum. I have nothing there, nothing at all. And but when they
And what about the second part of the question?
go ahead.
Can the colonoscopy make a difference with conditions that can lead to an ostomy?
Yes, it can make a huge difference because one can get medication, and if the conditions are bad from as viewed from the colonoscopy, something can be done before it's too late. Having colitis for 21 years, even though I had colonoscopies, that last colonoscopy saved my life because it gave me my ostomy, because ostomy saved lives. And people should not be afraid of what they could find in a colonoscopy. They should go and get it. Granted, you drink some stuff that tastes horrible and you get the runs because you're running to the bathroom every 10 minutes, but it's not bad. You're in twilight when they do the colonoscopy, so
Yeah.
you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah. And my last colonoscopy was with my ostomy,
Mm-hmm.
and the process was so much easier. Drinking the liquid and going was so much easier because you don't have to run to the bathroom every 10 minutes. It
No,
was
you
just
have a bag. Now,
it goes on the bag.
was yours done through your stoma?
Yes, they had to
Yes.
do double entries because I don't
Mm-hmm.
what they call the Ken butt. I don't have a Ken butt, so they
Yeah.
had to go in and check, make sure that everything was still there.
Oh, yeah.
We do have another question on the board for you. How do you ensure you get enough nutrients with such a reduced digestive tract?
Mm-hmm. I have to eat more fruit and vegetables.
Mm.
And thank God for my wife. She'll keep reminding me and reminding me. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm an honest man. I do not eat as much as I should. If any vegetable is hard, like green beans, if they're a little hard, I can't eat them. It could give me a blockage. And a blockage is when you can't digest the food and it stays in your small intestine. And any fecal matter below your large intestine will go in the toilet, but anything above that won't. July 2000, that was the day that went into infamy for myself. Went to Red Lobster, had, what was that I had? Crab cakes or no, flounder stuffed with mushrooms. Big mistake. Big
Oh,
mistake. I had a 4-day blockage and it was bad. And if you do get a blockage and if you find yourself throwing up, you should go to the emergency room right away. That's why I've got to be very careful with food. Anything that's hard. Carrots, celery, don't even bother.
wow.
Meat. The only meat I can eat safely is, let's say, a 4 or a 6 ounce fillet. It's not a lot. It's very tender. I can digest it well, no problem. When I was stationed teaching ROTC at South Carolina State University, there was a restaurant called Mr. Steak, and Saturday night you order Mr. Steak. There was nothing else to order in that town, and I would order a 16-ounce steak, sirloin steak. And I asked my wife, boy, this tastes good. Why does this taste so good? She said, it's full of fat. You're eating 16 ounces full of fat. I said, ooh. So I had
Yeah,
to change that right away. That's why it
yeah,
tasted so good. But growing up, it was boring and bland. That was my lifestyle, boring and bland. And again, that was my personality back then too, boring and bland, until I learned to live.
yeah. One of the things that changed for me after my ostomy, I've been very fortunate that a lot of things I'm still able to eat, especially like Mexican food. I was so afraid that I wouldn't be able to do a lot of,
Mhm.
but pork was one of the things that I don't process well,
Mhm.
so I have to be careful with pork. And then dairy, but dairy came right after chemo. Chemo
Mhm.
started making some problems, and dairy was the first thing that I had issues right after chemo, and then after the ostomy, pork became the issue, and it just. But those seem to be because on some of the, I think you and I talked about this a while back. One of the things that I find on some of the ostomy support pages is people are so fearful of food after an
Mhm.
ostomy about what to try, and I just tell everybody, everybody's different. You've just got to try, and if it doesn't work, then stop eating it. But don't completely change your life,
Eat
right?
what you want. Eat
Yeah,
whatever you want. If it bothers you, common sense. Don't eat it.
don't eat it.
Don't eat
Yeah,
it. Very, very simple. You mentioned Mexican food. I can eat Mexican food all day long and it won't bother me because I only eat one thing. That's it. One thing. Chicken and cheese quesadilla with grilled chicken and no sauce, no nothing.
got you.
And
If we ever visit, I'll remember that.
I like it. And we have a 9-year-old Cocker Spaniel, and his name is Alexander. And I'm on the Alexander diet. I would take a bite of my chicken and cheese quesadilla. I give him some chicken, and I would give him half of everything I eat. So, how do you lose weight? Yeah, I'm on the Alexander Tiberius Blum diet. I give him half of what I eat, only what I can.
You should
It's only a
publish
Big
that.
Mac. Good. But any other kind of Mexican food? No,
No.
no, I don't eat it. I can eat sushi, but I cannot stand. What is that green stuff that's on Japanese food?
Now that you asked me, it just completely
But
went out of
you
my
know what
head.
I mean.
Yes.
My son can take a mouthful of that and eat it, and
Wasabi.
there's
Wasabi.
wasabi. That's right, and there's nothing wrong. And I tell my two sons, who are 36 and 34 now, said, if you see any blood in your stool, and look at it, you go to the bathroom. Look at your stool. You're not weird or sick or nothing. Look at it. If there's any blood, you tell me and your mother right away. My daughter, a little bit different. She's 30 and she gets stressed out very easily. And she's due for a colonoscopy very, very soon, like yesterday.
Gotcha. So everybody watching, this is Put It Together Conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're talking with Colonel Justin Blum, and we're talking about foods to eat with an ostomy, taking care of yourself, and bloody poop. Is there anything in your bathroom? We have another question for you on the board.
Sure, go ahead.
What would you say to someone who has been told they need to get an ostomy and is fearful and not being able to have a life?
I would tell them you don't have a life now. If you have colitis or diverticulitis or Crohn's disease, you're running to the bathroom constantly. You're soiling your pants. You're like a baby going in your pants. You can't really have good relationships with others because every 20 minutes you're running to the bathroom, especially if they're at a very young age. I said, you've got your whole life ahead of you. And look at me. I don't have a rectum. I can't get my ostomy reversed because there's nothing to reverse it to. I will die with my ostomy bag, and I tell my wife to tell the funeral director, put a clean bag on me, because when I rise up and go to heaven, I want to make sure that it doesn't start raining shit. Going like that. Yeah. And I use humor like this when I talk to people. And you have to, because if I can get people to laugh with me, then that makes a big difference. And I would tell the young person, an ostomy changed my life considerably. I have a life.
Yeah.
I can go places. I can do things. Imagine riding in the car for 8 hours and not hearing, I got to go to the bathroom. I got to go to the bathroom. You have a bag. You go into the bathroom. And many times, even if it's raining out, I would pull over on the side at night with the headlights on, empty my bag in the middle of the night, and keep going. It's a lifesaver. It really is.
Yeah.
And nobody cares if you have a bag or not. They don't. People are more concerned about their own problems and little idiosyncrasies. I go around, a lot of people hide their bags in their pants. A lot of people never mention they have a bag. A lot of people don't work anymore because they're afraid of one sound. Daniel, you know what that sound is?
Yes.
What do you think that sound is?
I call it the trumpet.
No, the sound is.
Yeah, the trumpet. I call it the trumpet.
Yeah. Oh, you call a fart a trumpet?
I call mine the trumpet.
A trumpet, and that's what it is. They're afraid that they'll start playing Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy of Company B on that trumpet. Yeah. And it's ridiculous. I go around having my bag hang out. Now, the only criticism I ever got was my shoes don't match my bag. One guy.
You stole my joke. That's one of my jokes when I give presentations.
I know. I heard it years ago. I heard it years ago.
They asked me what my biggest challenge is with my ostomy. I always tell them it's hard to match my bag to my shoes. That's one of my jokes. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I probably heard it before you because I'm a little bit older than you. But people don't care. People are more concerned about themselves. And it was like with my wife. We started going out on the 6th of December, 1983, to be exact. And I appreciate my wife so much. On the 6th of every month since 1983, I would send her flowers because she has been my huge support, and I could not have done this without her. And it's like I used to wear a hairpiece, and my wife and I started going out, and she found out that I had the hairpiece because our neighbor told her, "Hey, Justin has a hairpiece," because the neighbor wanted Leah to dump me to marry the neighbor's son. But when I first went in the Army, I wore a hairpiece, and after a while, I stopped wearing it. Hairpiece was right there, cut to style for the military. I had my BDU cap, camouflage cap, and I went to the orderly room, and I took off the cap because you're not authorized to have that cover on when you walk through the door. And off came my hair with my hat. And then all of a sudden, there was dead silence. And I said, uh-oh, I better do something with this thing. So I went and threw it in my car. And the only time I wore it afterwards was on Halloween night. When my daughter was young, I would put it on and I would scare my daughter. You know, she's 4 years old. She would start crying, "You're not my daddy. You're not my daddy. I want my daddy." So I took the hairpiece off. I found out that I don't need a hairpiece. I don't need a hairpiece at all because I'm happy and content with me, despite the fact that I poop in a bag, despite the fact that I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'3" and 3/4 to be exact. I have a lot of confidence in myself. And when I was growing up, I had no confidence whatsoever in myself. And that probably led to my getting proctitis and then colitis. But I can walk up to anyone and say anything I want now. And I'm not shy. I'm not shy whatsoever. Going in the military and then the adjustment with the ostomy has given me a lot of confidence in myself.
Good.
And it's good. That's a good thing compared to a lot of people that don't. I talk to ostomy support groups, and a lot of people in the group, they're older than me. And a lot don't have senses of humor, but they very, very quiet about it. They don't joke about it, nothing. And when I go to these support groups, I like making them laugh. In fact, this morning, I talked to a support group in Oklahoma. And when you think of Oklahoma, it's more than just when the wind goes rushing through the plain, like in the Broadway play. There was a 91-year-old lady in there, and I made her smile. That made my day. I made the 91-year-old lady smile with a flagellation joke.
Well, you see, for people that have been following for a while, you know this. I took a comedy class back in 2018, and at the showcase, the graduation showcase, my very first joke was about going to my colorectal doctor and that first appointment. That was the first joke I ever told.
Really?
And that set the precedent, I guess, for now. But I so appreciate that you have talked about just being comfortable in yourself, because I'm an actor. I'm a stand-up comic. I host these shows, and at no time does my bag come into, except the only times that it makes a difference is when I'm on set somewhere and I poop and I'm like, and the wardrobe people are trying to fix my shirt. I'm like, no, I need to go to the bathroom.
That's right.
I'll be back. But for the most part, I did a movie a couple of weeks ago and nobody had a clue. And I was wearing a tank top, white beard tank top, and the wardrobe person came up to me to fix me. And when he touched the bag, he kind of freaked. I said, "Oh, it's my ostomy. I guess I should have told you." And he goes, I couldn't tell because I couldn't tell. But I think it does have to do with a little bit with the confidence that you build for yourself. That you don't walk around with your hands on your belly the whole time.
Yes, that's right. That's right. It's like that old joke. Is that a bulge in your pocket, or are you happy to see me? There's no, it's my ostomy bag.
Ostomy bag. I remember that.
You've heard that before?
No, but I'm going to use it now.
Go ahead. Hey, you made up that joke. It's a pretty good joke. Use it. There was an instance that happened November 1997. I had a brand new officer's dress mess uniform. It's equivalent to a tuxedo. And I was one of the lead speakers for the NAACP's Freedom Scholarship Banquet. And this was in a place called the Berea Center, which was like a huge church. And it was the mother church, per se, for 28 subordinate churches. Well, I made a mistake. My daughter was 5 years old then, and in the morning, I had 2 packs of oatmeal, instant oatmeal. I love instant oatmeal. It didn't love me that day. So I had 2 packs of the oatmeal in me with all the fiber. And at the birthday party, it was a bowling party, they had popcorn. I love popcorn. Actually, without butter, hot air, it just tastes good. A little bit of salt, not much. When you mix oatmeal and popcorn together, you're going to get a mess. Well, my wife was in the audience, and I gave my little spiel, and then I sat down and I looked because I had the napkin on my lap. I looked; it was wet. I said, "What did I do? Spill water?" And I said, "Holy shit! I didn't spill any water. That's from me." So I pointed to my wife like this, looked down, and she knew exactly what I meant. So we had to go somewhere. You know, we always carry spare clothes, spare flange, spare pouch. So the only place to go was the men's room in the big church. So there we were. In the men's room, I'm laying on my back. My wife is straddling me. Her hands and arms are waving frantically, trying to clean up the mess from my volcano that was erupting, and trying to clean the mess and put on a new flange and a new bag. And about 3 different people came in at different times. They thought we're having sex. Who in their right mind has sex on the floor of the bathroom in a big church? So every time I passed the Berea Center, I thought of that instance.
Oh my God.
But my wife and I, we found it funny. We found it hilarious. But what are you going to do? These things happen, and you have no control over it. So if you can laugh with yourself, and other people will laugh with you, which means that they understand, and if it happens to them, they can laugh with themselves and not get stressed out. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where you like. There's like I love oatmeal in the morning, and I do like a good bag of popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you. I think the only difference in those things is like I know I know if I'm gonna eat that popcorn, that like I'm gonna have a big bag at some point. Like
Right.
It's gonna be a big bag of air at some point. And you just it's small adjustments, but you're something you said about earlier that made total sense to me. Before my cancer diagnosis and before it all, I was miserable. I couldn't eat well. I was always bloated. I had a hard time digesting food. I was always tired because my body was double working trying to
Exactly.
digest.
That's right.
And Christian, who is asking the questions online, my partner, he was there right before and through it all. And you know, when I had my ostomy, Dr. Rad, who's my doctor then, suggested we have it done like in November of 2015, and I waited till March of 2016. That whole time I was wearing diapers and it was messy. We were traveling, and I think now, like, dang it, I wish I'd have had these conversations then, so I could have made my mind sooner and enjoyed some of those trips that I went on, because I had to take diapers with me. And then we were up in Florida buying diapers at the local pharmacy.
Sure.
You can pack them all in the suitcase. And
I can relate to that. At what point I had to wear women's panty liners in my underwear because I kept going to the bathroom. You know, at the colitis. And one point I was taking Imodium. Now, if my wife takes a half of Imodium, that doo-doo doesn't see daylight for 3 days. Well, I was on 15 hospital strength Imodium. 15. And I would still go 20 times a day. That's a lot of times. and it
Wow.
does make you tired, and it's well, thank God those days are over.
Wow. That's yeah, I think about like I would go from laxatives so I could poop
Hmm.
because of the cancer to
Right.
Imodium so that I wouldn't poop so much. So and then and we're trying to auto prescribe, and it's so dangerous for our systems because we're just messing with that. Before we continue, let me remind everybody you're watching Put It Together Conversations. My guest today is the wonderful Colonel Justin Blum, and we're talking uh, hair pieces, poopy bags, and popcorn. So
That's right. Don't forget the oatmeal.
don't forget the oatmeal. One of the things we do here on the show before is I ask my guests to share some words and wisdom. So, Colonel Justin Blum, what words of wisdom would you like to share with my audience?
Let's see. Words of wisdom. I have 3 seconds to come up with words of wisdom. Uh, when you poop, it's an example of who and what you are. If you see any blood in that poop, get it checked out right away. And the younger you are, please get it checked out. Young people suffer from Crohn's and colitis. And with the UOAA, there's a very large contingency of young people. And, information is so vital for those people. And if there's any problem, get it taken care of at a very early age, because the earlier you get it checked out, the longer you will live.
Thank you.
That's wisdom, life.
Post ostomy, what was one of the biggest challenges and how did you get through it?
Swimming.
Hmm.
I had my ostomy on 28 February 1993. It was 30 May 2010 before I actually went in a pool with my ostomy flange and bag. And the main reason I didn't go into a pool is because I didn't know that the flange was waterproof. I went to an ostomy conference in Charlottesville, and I got up to give a talk because I was nominated for what's called the Tony Snow Award, the Convatec Award. They pick one person out of the country for it, and it's for service to the country, service to others. And the vice president of Convatec said, "You could have gone to the pool." I said, "I could have." He goes, "Sure. They make the ostomy flanges waterproof now." And I was happy to hear that. Have I been in a pool since? No, not that I didn't want to, but if I had to again, I would. I read of people going into hot tubs with their ostomy. They got to dry it right away afterwards. But that's one thing I regret. I liked swimming like that. I liked the exercise. And that's a very important part, because you got to stay in shape. Because if you don't exercise and don't watch what you eat, you can turn into a heavier person than you are. And that's not good for you either. And just because you're pooping everything out doesn't mean you're not going to gain weight. Not at all. Because your small intestine still absorbs all the proteins, nutrients, and the bad stuff that's in food, the fat that's in food. So that still stays with your body.
Yeah, I avoided pools for a long time too. And then we went to Hawaii for our 7th anniversary. And I bought one of those wraps that's
Mm-hmm.
the wrap is made out of like swim trunk,
Mm-hmm.
and it's black, which match my trunks because even now I wear a wrap just to keep everything contained.
Right.
But I went and people couldn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we were buying. Long story short, we were buying sunglasses in this little hut next to the pool, and I mentioned the ostomy, and the guy looked down. He goes, "I thought that was just part of your swim trunks, like just they were just a high cut." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, cool." But it's been the only time that I've been in the pool. But I think it's just, which leads me to one of our last questions. Did you ever have body issues, body image issues, Yes or no? And if you didn't, how did you get through it, or how have you managed it?
Well, the only body image issues I had, because I was thin, most of my life, was going to the bathroom a lot with the colitis, and I had no control over it at all. But it did pay off once. I got set up on a blind date with a girl by the name of Lois Polikoff. Now, my friends would joke and kid me back then that, yeah, you're the one that went out with Lois Polikoff, but not a good idea for a blind date, not at all. And I said, I need to get out of this. So we were driving back to the college campus, and I said, uh-oh, I'm getting an attack, a colitis attack. That's what I called it. And I need to go back and get my zolfidine. Well, back in the early 70s, when you had colitis, the only medication you could get was azolfidine. And azolfidine, each tablet was as big as a nickel. And I was good. I could put 12 in my mouth at one time and swallow it. But the azolfidine didn't do any good, and it got me out of the blind date, and life was good after that.
That's yeah. Christian is saying that people didn't even notice. Most people think it's a girdle. Yeah, because the one I use now is a tan color, so it just looks like I'm wearing a girdle most of the time.
Right, right.
And I tell people it's not that I'm embarrassed of my ostomy. It's just that for most things that I do, it's not part of the character or the stand-up comedy or what I'm presenting. So I don't want to focus on the ostomy. I want to focus on what I'm presenting.
Exactly.
So it's just different things. But yeah, I usually tell people who know me and have known me for a while, if I'm at dinner or somewhere and at a gathering, I'm like, oh, Tommy's calling, or I need to go pay attention to Tommy because that's the name of my ostomy, Tommy.
Right.
I'm like, Tommy needs me. They know I don't have
They
to,
know,
I don't have to say
sure.
any more. I don't say any more than that. But
You know what I called my stoma? My stoma. I keep it simple. That's right. It's my stoma. Why give it a name? That's what it is. Right then and there.
and
But
for those of you watching, there's several groups of thoughts, and some. If you go on some sites, people say if you give your stoma a name, it just connects you better. But then there's groups of people like the Colonel who's like, no, my first group of people were like name it and make it. And I think for me psychologically, it just worked better. I had so many issues that it's made the transition easier. So for those of you watching, if you are getting a stoma or have a stoma, you don't have to name it.
No.
You want to, but it's all your choice. I think one of the things that I want y'all to take away from this episode is that it is your choice what you do once you have a stoma. You don't have to tell anybody. You can tell everybody. You can wear a wrap. You can wear it outside. This is your body and it's your life, and you can do what you want. But we hope that if you are thinking about getting a stoma and you need it, know that your life does not stop. There's some changes. Let's be realistic. You might have to make some changes and adjustments. But I did that after HIV. I did that after cancer. I did that when I met Christian. Like every part of your life requires some adjustment. And
you two are very fortunate to have each other.
Yeah.
Extremely fortunate. One last thing. I tell anybody and everybody who will listen that I have an ostomy and what caused it. And the only reason I do it, not that I'm bragging, I have an ostomy and you don't. Yeah, I'm better than you. I don't do that. But if anyone does have the symptoms of Crohn's, colitis, or diverticulitis, and they are afraid to say something, or if they've had it for a while and they're definitely afraid of having a bag or a stoma, I would let them know that I have one. And it's going on 29 years now. And I let them know that they can ask me anything, because if it'll help them understand what they have, and they can see that you can lead a full, healthy life with an ostomy, that's better than being in pain and sick with a diseased colon and trying to live a life that way, because you'll be miserable. Yeah. And that's what I do. I let people know.
Yeah. one of the best things that has come of it is that I definitely found an improvement in my life because I'm not worried about feeling sick all the time. I'm
Mhm.
just concerned about living my life the best that I can.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and, and I think for all of you who have been following my career for the last 10 years or so and watch so have definitely seen the improvements that have been made. So I hope, thank you for everybody following. Any last words before we go, Colonel?
Yes, everyone likes to look younger than they are, especially when you get older. Now, when I first saw you on the screen, I thought you were like in your late 30s. And then you told me how old you really are. And here you took care of yourself. You had your ostomy, and your taking care of yourself was a priority. And who knows how old you look if you didn't have your surgery. So hopefully, and you have your hair, that makes you look younger. You're a lucky man. You have your hair, but it'll keep you looking young, hopefully for a very, very long time.
I appreciate that. Yes, thank you. He was very kind when we met, and he said I was 35, and I didn't want to correct
Yeah,
him. I stuck with that. But if
that's
you
right.
guys want to get in touch with the Colonel and get more information about him, and maybe have him speak, here is his Facebook page. Make sure you go check him out, find
Mhm.
him there. Um, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we've been planning this for a while, and
Right.
we've had our opportunities to have private conversations. So I was very excited
Mhm.
to share your story with our audience. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to come back and get you in just a second. Let me just say
Okay.
goodbye to everybody. For everybody watching, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been, I love all my guests and I'm excited to have them all, but it's a little extra special when people who share some of the things that I go through in my personal life are able to come in and share their experiences, not only for you guys, but really for me too, because it allows me to see that some of the things that I go through or have happened to me that are not exclusive to me. It's my own little support group, if you want, while I'm here. If you're watching us, remember we are here most of the week, so make sure you check us on Wednesdays on the Christian and Daniel show. On Fridays, the Cart Depot, and we are coming back. We're just going through some restructuring on the show. And then on Saturdays, remember, I have 2 episodes of Put It Together Conversations, noon today, and then 5 o'clock. And if you're watching this episode at 5 o'clock, we're going to have Healing with Aloha Lady. If you follow her on Instagram, she'll be on the show later on today. Also, if you haven't heard about it, I don't know why, Bunny and the Colors Game. That's my book, written by me, illustrated by Jennifer and Vivian Gacha. You can find it in any of these 5 outlets. Edition 2 should be out probably later this month, or if you're going to be in LA for Comic Con, you will be able to see me there with Bunny 17 Media. Will be there with our booth, signing books, selling products. So if you're going to be at LA Comic Con December 4th and 5th, make sure you come by our booth and I'll be there with the second edition of the book, plus the Spanish version is coming out. And for those of you who have been keeping track of the alignment deck that I'm creating, it is at the publishers. They're looking over at editing. We just need to send in the manual, and it should be out. But it's like 75% done. I just need to do my part, but I've been procrastinating. Don't ask me why. Uh, Other than that, we want to thank the Colonel for being here. Thank y'all for being here. Remember, Put It Together Conversations is a show about you, where you come from, where you are now, and what your journey is like. The idea is to motivate and inspire other people to go after their dreams and goals. Maybe you have a story to share. Maybe you have somebody you know that wants to share their story. Let them know. Get in touch with us. Reach out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube, and send us a message, and we'll get you on the show. And if you're watching us on YouTube, do me a favor: scroll down and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and you follow us along. For now, I want to thank the Colonel. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and I guess we'll see you next week.